Welcome back to the Adventure with Coffee podcast. I am one of your hosts, Tyler, but the most beautiful host is...
I'm not going to say my name because that's not true.
Gracie. So, y'all, we're back. We had a little hiatus. You probably saw on Facebook. But it's okay. We had a lot going on the last couple weeks, you know, between the Madison to Waccamaw move, Waccamaw to South Carolina.
It was a lot.
Yeah, and now I started a new job, so I've been in pretty intense training, which I love, the past week. So, but we're back. We're recording. By the time this comes out, it'll be Friday, and hopefully Tyler will be graduated from his training and actually doing what he's gonna do.
You need to add in like those fake applause. That people add in.
Yeah, like a soundboard. I need to get some of that. That's a good idea. And then, but we'll talk about that job in a little bit, right, Gracie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what is today's podcast going to be about, Grace E?
Grace E?
Grace E?
We are going to talk a little bit about working remotely. Tyler and I are kind of a little more of outcasts is kind of the word to use in this type of lifestyle, I guess. Outliers instead of outcasts.
Like outcasts is kind of like rude.
Well,
it might get us canceled.
That's probably true too, if we're going to be honest. But yes, okay, outliers. So we're outliers just honestly because a lot of people that do travel full time and live at campgrounds, the majority are gonna end up being older people. Typically retirees that don't want to own a home anymore a lot of the time. Now, I'm not saying by any means that we are the only young couples doing this, because we're not.
Sounds like you're trying to get us canceled this entire podcast by being ageist now.
No. But I mean, I don't hear a lot of people, and honestly, if we do run into couples, a lot of the times it's couples who don't work remotely.
Yeah, you have a lot of couples who one will be like a traveling nurse or traveling construction worker, and then the other does like odd jobs.
Or they may have kids and they work, like do the at-home school stuff.
Right.
So that's kind of what we're, at least personally, that's what we see a lot. So we wanted to talk to you guys about working remotely because if you travel full-time yourself, if you're looking at traveling full-time, or if you're just interested in it, a lot of the times you will see questions about how to work remotely and what kind of Wi-Fi was a huge thing. So what kind of Wi-Fi should you be using when you travel?
Right.
Even if you don't work remotely.
Now, let us just preface this by saying this is our experience in an RV that we're going to be talking about on this podcast episode. We both did work remotely from home. You did for a couple years. I did for a couple months. Yeah. Before we went to traveling full time, but they are two different animals. 100%.
100%.
So while some of the stuff we say on this podcast may apply to a house, don't take everything we're saying and run with it to working in a house.
Yeah, absolutely not. So first we want to really touch on RVing full-time and how does your career fit into it. Because if you're like us and you need to have income to travel full-time and income to just pay your bills like we do, you really have to kind of figure out working remotely and how that's going to fit into your RV lifestyle. Because that was one of the biggest adjustments I feel like we had to make personally.
And like I mentioned earlier, I mean, we were both working remotely before that. So we had kind of gotten into a habit of how to work remotely from home.
Oh, it's a whole different aspect.
Yeah. And
environment.
I mean, like you think about it, at home we had a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. One of the bedrooms was technically an office. Yeah. And that's where you worked. And then while you worked in there, I worked in the living room. Yeah. And so we had space, and weren't you using your desktop at the time?
I was, yeah.
Yeah. So you had that.
My work provided me with supplies, which we'll get into in just a little bit, but you have to downsize in an RV. Yeah. I don't care what size RV you have. You can have the most immaculate RV in the world, and you're still going to have to downsize from a house.
Yeah, you're not taking a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, 1,600 square foot, and putting it into a 40-foot RV.
You're just not. No. So we're going to start off with the conversation that we had when we really first, in 2023, well, I guess technically 2022.
Yeah.
Ish, between the 2 years. we wanted to make sure that this was something that was long term. If we were going to sell our home, we want to make sure it was something long term for us. So we talked about our careers, where we were at, what we wanted to do, working remotely. And I'm still working with the place that I was with at that time anyways. And it worked out for me. It worked out with it being remote. It worked out with traveling. Actually, I better yet, I think it actually worked out for me better on the road with where I'm at currently. So, Tyler and I had that discussion where we were at, because he has, everybody's kind of heard his story. He's bounced around a little bit here, a little bit there. So I think that conversation a lot of it was for you.
Yeah. And I think, ultimately what it came down to really was because, in our minds, we were downsizing and things were going to cost less. I was able to take part-time work so I could focus on the business and everything.
Yeah.
And that was kind of where our heads were at, was that I would be working part-time contracts and focusing on the business while we were traveling.
Yeah. Working on the business, too, was a big one.
Yeah, that took a lot of time and effort. I mean, especially with us traveling, because we were in different time zones. That wasn't even something that we had really taken into account, I don't think, until we got into the RV.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
You're right. And I didn't think about that, and I absolutely loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Because my job is technically contracted out through Kentucky, but to Alabama. So most of my team is on Eastern time, but we work for a Central Time school. And so doing that, I absolutely, loved when we got to Central Time, because instead of starting work at 9, I started work at 8, but I was also done by 4:30 instead of 5:30. And I absolutely thrived when we hit, we were only, what was it?
Mountain.
Where was it?
Mountain. In Colorado.
So I started even earlier.
Yeah, 7 o'clock, and you were off by 3.
And I was off by 3, and that was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I loved it. I hated getting up early, but I loved getting off earlier. That was so wonderful. So that's definitely something to take into account, is definitely your time zones, because everybody's a little bit different with where they're at. And I honestly, we'll talk a little bit about resources that you can look at for full-timing, but if you are going to do this, it is something I would say be prepared for it to get a little crazy with your Wi-Fi.
Yes, 100%. Things with the Wi-Fi got wonky. We had to do a lot of testing and research. About the Wi-Fi. I mean, we both did a lot of research for the RV in general on Facebook groups and everything, but I think I kind of took the lead with Wi-Fi.
Technology was always going to be your thing.
Right.
I feel like we've talked about it. I took more research in with the RV tanks and stuff like that. That was kind of where my fright was coming in from.
Right.
And I was not going to touch technology. That is your thing anyways, so.
Yeah, so it started off, I did a lot of research on different types of Wi-Fi that we could use. The first one I had actually looked at and was considering was Trifecta Wireless. I don't know if you remember that. And I had actually put in one of the Facebook groups. I was like, hey, has anybody used this? Nobody had used it, which kind of was like, oh, this is a little nerve-wracking. But a lot of people started saying that they use T-Mobile. This was when T-Mobile first came out with their home internet, their travel internet or whatever. So we were like, okay, well, we'll try that. We obviously wanted to test it out in the house to see how it worked with both of us working remotely.
Yes, I do remember that. That was
Yeah, so we got it all set up, and let me just tell you, maybe it was just where we were, our location, but even that is worrisome when you're going to be traveling and don't know where your location is. But it was terrible. I mean, neither one of us could be on a video call at the same time.
No.
And that was in the house, so we weren't even beside each other. We were on opposite sides of the house, pulling from different routers. So it was rough. So the next alternative I had found, or been suggested, which had been on my radar, but it was more expensive.
This was something where a lot of people who travel full time, it was all in the groups, all in the RV groups everywhere. Right. It actually has its own, probably more than one, but it has its own Facebook group.
Yeah. like Starlink for RVs.
Yeah, specifically for RV owners.
Yeah. So we got that, and I mean, it was amazing at our house. We could run more stuff off of the Starlink than when we had like actual home internet.
Oh, 100%.
And it was better. So we were like,
and it's easy setup.
Yeah.
So easy.
So we were like, this is probably gonna be it. So we used that whenever we went to Mount Airy on our like temporary trips or our beginning trips, and then.
And let me pause you real quick. Let me tell you how great my husband is, because Starlink is very expensive.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna tell you, I think it's worth the money.
Oh, 100%.
But when you get it, you get this stand that goes onto the ground. So he actually did extra research and found something that connects to the ladder. I'll let you talk more about it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was just great that he looked into it, because I didn't have to worry about somebody stealing it, because that is a concern you should think about.
Right. It's basically it's like just a holder for the oh god, what is that thing called? The leg of the Starlink, the base of the Starlink, I guess.
Yeah.
And it has little wing nuts on the sides that you tighten whenever it's in there, and it tightens up. Well, you have to, and this thing mounts onto your ladder, the top of your ladder. So I remember whenever I had to put it up, it was the first time we got to Mount Airy. We were having the water issues. We were already, with that. And I was on top of the roof, leaned over the side, like tightening these things. Zane and your dad were down there, like handing me tools. But Zane's like, "Buddy, you need anything?" And I'm like, "Nah, man, I think I got it." I was like, "Just hammer that socket." And Mike's just sitting there being Mike, supervising, because that's all he ever does. I'm just kidding, Mike. Kinda. You don't listen to this, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, he always supervised. I was always the hard worker. It was really me that worked all the time.
Okay.
And I'm just saying this because Mike can't listen. Anyway. So yeah, Starlink was like, we got to Ocean Lakes and it was amazing, and so we were like, yeah, this is it. And we got to Lake Town.
When our spot okay, the owner of that campground that we stay at in Lake Waccamaw is very rural, and so he was just clearing out spots, and the spot we were in still had a ton of trees around it, because when you stay at a campground, if you haven't yet, a lot of the times it is going to be treeless throughout your sites, unless it's a tiny tree.
Or it's going to be more canopy.
Or that is true. We
ran into that a lot.
We did. Where was the one with the cows? That Bill loved so much. Not Pennsylvania.
We didn't have it in New Jersey because we had disconnected it by then.
I know, but that was a really canopy spot.
That was a really canopy spot. What was Pin Oak.
Yes,
Pin
I was
Oak
about
was
to say.
very
Yes.
covered. So you do run, and so that's kind of the risk you face with a Starlink. So
True.
You have to keep that in mind, and we kind of hadn't kept that in mind. So once we started traveling, it was like we had already had a plan, an agenda, and we didn't want to start changing things. Like looking at it now in hindsight, yeah, we'd probably look for places that had open spots that with an open view to the sky. But
I will say, there's a pro and a con. Obviously, Starlink's a con because you can't get it to face the stars enough or the sky enough to get the satellites, etc. Because that's how it works. Did you say that already?
No.
Okay, yeah. That's how it works. Like, it looks up into the...
So Starlink, for those of you who don't know, is owned by Elon Musk, and look. Okay.
Everybody has their feelings about him, but look, if I need Wi-Fi, I need Wi-Fi.
Exactly. He's got the best. So... And his whole thing now is SpaceX, and he's got all the satellites in the sky and the orbiting the Earth. So these Starlink satellites point towards the closest, or the ones that you have on the ground point towards the closest satellite in outer space to pick up signal.
Yeah. And
there's tons of them, but I've actually heard that the newer this is not me saying it. I have not tested it. I do not know. I have seen in the Facebook groups that the newer Starlinks. The Starlink dishes, that's what I was looking for, actually can go through slimmer tree covering. Obviously, if it's fully covered with like a big tree and stuff,
you can't see it all.
You wouldn't be able to. But like whenever we were at Waccamaw, it would have been fine there because there was openings. There was just some branches.
Yeah.
So the newer Starlink satellites supposedly can actually have a stronger signal and can go through more coverage.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's the pro and con you get with Starlink.
Right.
But I will say a pro about getting a shaded spot is if it's hot and it's the summer, it's nice to have the shade on top of your RV. So
y'all, I tell you what, these things get hotter than a can of Ionies out on the Atlantic Ocean. I'll tell you that much.
I'm gonna tell you something. Nobody's gonna know what you just said. Nobody, unless they are from Leland, North Carolina, is gonna know what you just said.
You know what?
Huh.
I'm just showing off how professional I can be and how I can change the tone of my voice to be professional.
I like when you do it.
Especially whenever I'm in my customer service job. And then there are times where I can talk like this because that's just how I grew up talking. And, now I just try to talk more professional out in public. But you hear me talk like this more than anybody else, you know what I'm saying?
I love it. Next, we are going to talk a little bit about our other options that we have kind of come up with while on the road. Before we started, we wanted to have a plan because having one set of Wi-Fi is just not going to be doable when you're traveling all the time. And everybody knows that. You and your spouse, you and your friend, you and your coworker, it doesn't matter. You both may have different phone plans. And you can know, I'm sure you've been through it before, where you've had 5 bars and the person beside you had 0.
Mm-hmm.
So, something to kind of combat this is Tyler and I have been on a phone plan forever together. We've been on them together. We did decide to branch out, and so he went with Verizon and I went with T-Mobile. And we decided to do that because just in case, if Starlink didn't work.
Right. Just to have a backup.
Just to have a little backup.
And plus, we also wanted to have 2 different phone services in case we were stuck somewhere and at least maybe one of us would have it.
It could have happened
it
in
did happen. Kansas.
Yeah. Ugh. When we so thank God. Thank God we did that. But we have had to use it before.
Yeah,
where
100%.
Starlink didn't work. We do have an AT&T hotspot, which I'll let Tyler talk to you guys about, but we had other options that were actual Wi-Fi options and not a phone hotspot, but we have used our hotspots on our phones before for work specifically because we've had issues with, which we'll talk about, our personal Wi-Fi struggles that both of us have had. But I think that was probably one of the smartest things we did was get on 2 different cell phone plans for that reason specifically. And
then to further it even more, we added a AT&T hotspot.
Yeah.
Because it was, it was the 3rd major phone carrier. So we were like, at least something should have Wi-Fi.
Got something out of without Starlink, because like Tyler said, while we were traveling, we honestly just stowed it away. Yeah. Because it just wasn't. A lot of places we stayed at had trees, and it just didn't make sense for us to carry that around. And like we said, it's not a bad option once you buy the set. The set is kind of expensive. Yeah. Once you buy it, your monthly Wi-Fi cost, what is it?
$125, I think.
And it decreased recently, didn't it? Yeah. So it's really not that bad because right now where we're currently at, we are using Starlink again, and I have not had one issue at work.
No, it's great.
So I wouldn't change it. But we did go ahead and cancel our AT&T hotspot.
Yeah, because we got the Starlink back up and running. And honestly, the AT&T, it worked for what we needed it to. Yeah. But
it worked on the road, but it wasn't super reliable.
Right. Like we said, we still had to rely on our phone hotspots in some spots.
And because he was working, I was working, it wouldn't stop working overheat, but it would just get so hot. Yeah. And then we would be turning around and using it at night to watch TV. And it was just a lot on a little hotspot. So this is just it was just kind of a Band-Aid, I guess.
Exactly.
And then Gracie lost it anyways. So we've all heard the story about me losing the tire pressure monitor, sensors and all that good stuff. Well, I lost this piece of technology too.
A couple weeks ago.
I don't know where it went. Tyler and I was working, and Tyler and I had to go do something, and so, no, it wasn't. It was school. We were going to the storage unit. I wasn't working. It was for school, and because we both, everybody knows, we both go back to school, and I had something that was starting to be due, and we had something to go do. So Tyler was like, "Hey, bring the hotspot, do that in the car, and then by the time we get to where we needed, you'll be done." Right. So that's what I did. I threw the hotspot in the back seat, so I didn't lose it, and I didn't let it drop out the front seat. and I guess something from the store, it was dark.
Yeah.
So my best guess is that it fell when we were doing stuff at the storage unit from the back seat, and it was gone.
Yeah.
We went the other day, and it wasn't broken or anything. It's not like somebody ran it over.
Yeah, it just wasn't there.
It just has disappeared.
Yeah.
I mean, we tore the Jeep apart.
I told Gracie it was a sign because we had kept putting off getting Starlink again.
Yeah.
And I was like, it was just a sign.
I cried.
She did.
I cried, and he was like, it's fine. It's okay. We were going to get rid of it anyways. I still felt so bad.
Yeah. I think it was the tire pressure monitors coming back.
It was PTSD about it.
Yeah. You make fun of me for losing stuff, but let's be honest, you've lost the most expensive stuff.
I definitely have. And lastly, just as far as technology goes, we have the good old campground Wi-Fi. Now, it depends on where you go. Sometimes they have really, like, right now we're kind of at more of a resorty type place.
Right.
So their Wi-Fi, we haven't tried it. Starlink's so great, we don't need to try it. But I see that they have what are they called? The little
boosters?
Yes, everywhere around here. We've been at a couple places where they've had boosters all around the campground.
Yeah.
So those are super helpful. I think that's a green flag.
Yeah.
When you stay at a campground and they've got boosters around.
Exactly.
Green flag.
100%. And I mean, it also depends on like how filled the park is, how many people are
how many people are there.
Right.
Yeah. It gets, and you can tell because when we were at, I'd say the biggest one is probably the Waccamaw, our Lake Waccamaw campground, because we stayed there the most, and there weren't a ton of. It's very small. It's very rural. There's not a lot of people there, but they don't have boosters set up.
Yeah,
and so
he's working on it.
He is. He's still growing his campground. This is not the end all be all for him. So this is not a drag on him whatsoever.
No, he's trying. If you want to stay there, like,
oh my God, it's amazing.
100%.
Love it there. But that's just an example because we work from home. So during the day, it's so weird because my laptop would pick up the Wi-Fi and Tyler's laptop wouldn't pick up the Wi-Fi for the campground. And then come 5 o'clock when everybody's getting off of work and getting home, count your blessings.
Yeah.
Because everybody's on it and it's gonna lag and it's just difficult. So, and that is not the only campground. We've been around plenty of other campgrounds where it's been that bad.
100%.
It just, you really roll your dice. So if you're going to travel full time and you don't want that spotty Wi-Fi, Starlink, for us, is going to be the one we recommend.
Yeah, 100%.
So.
And speaking of spotty Wi-Fi and running off at 3 hours of sleep, let's roll into introducing you guys to a brand new sponsor. When you're running on campground Wi-Fi and 3 hours of sleep, you need more than just good vibes. And that's where Adventure with Coffee podcast sponsor Dubby comes in. No crash, no jitters, just clean, focused energy that won't make your hand shake or your heart scream.
It's zero sugar, zero fillers, and zero fake stuff. None of that weird stuff you can't pronounce. Basically, if chaos had a chill cousin that helped you focus and tasted good, it'd be Dubby. We don't hit record or the road without it.
Made in the U.S., camper approved, and RV life tested. This isn't your sketchy gas station energy drink.
So grab yours at w.gg and use Adventure W Coffee at checkout for 10% off. Because RV life is unpredictable, but your energy doesn't have to be.
All right, and we're back. I just want to say I love Dubby. I really do. I mean, I think
it's really good.
It is. And guys, I found a trick, okay? If you mix a little bit of any kind of your powdered drink, but for us it's Dubby, into like a quarter cup of water, and then pour it into like I pour it into my tumbler with club soda water.
Yeah.
Makes it kind of like an energy drink.
And that's huge for him because he downs Red Bulls like it's nothing.
Oh yeah.
So, and he's a big soda drinker, and so having something that's a little more carbonated I've noticed it. Like, granted, just today, he kept his tumbler home. So I'm assuming you had some issues today. But I've noticed we try really hard not to be a heavy soda drinking family anymore. And so I'll buy the 12 or 24 packs and make it last either a week to 2 weeks for us.
Yeah.
He has done a lot better.
Yeah. I mean, and a lot of that has to do with Dubby. I haven't really had, I think I've had maybe one Red Bull since we got our Dubby shipment in.
And I got it for you, didn't I?
Yeah.
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 Just because I felt it was a little treat, you know.
Shout out to Dub.
And I will tell you this, I am a picky person when it comes to the stuff that goes into my water.
100%.
I'm a plain water girl. I love room temperature cold. I don't care. I love water. But I'm very particular because some stuff tastes gross. It was their hydro. It wasn't, they have different ones. They have caffeine and then they have hydro versions.
Right, which is more of a electrolyte based, non-sweetened, non-caffeinated.
Yeah. I like those.
Yeah.
And they had it was a watermelon lemonade.
Watermelonada.
It was so good.
Yeah.
I want to get, because they gave us some testers, because I wanted to figure out which ones we liked the most.
Right.
I want to buy the tub of that now because I like it. And for the summer,
oh yeah,
I bet that's so good for the summer. So, yeah, anyways, I'm sorry.
We
just wanted to talk to you a little bit about it. So,
Dubby for the W's.
Oh, I like it. I like it. Witkowski's.
We just fist bumped in case you want to know. So, back to the podcast at hand. Besides the technological issues that we had, one thing that we didn't mention about on the technological side, because it was more Wi-Fi, but I do want to mention here, was we did invest in a WeBoost cell booster that I just put up like a month ago. Even though we've had it for 3 years.
We bought this when we first got the camper, and he said, "I'll put it up." It's now 2025.
Yeah.
He finally put it up.
Yeah, but
it took him 5 seconds, but he finally got it up.
You're glad I put it up now, aren't you?
Yeah, actually, we did look.
Yeah.
I was wondering if it would actually make a difference.
Yeah.
But it really has made a difference in our cell phone.
Yeah, we can unplug it and we'll go down a bar or two, plug it back in, and it goes right back up. Yep. It's crazy. Anyway, so besides that, there is the physical space issues that we faced. You know, I think one of the biggest things, I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, was we went from having our own spaces, our own rooms that we were working at, to literally working in a maybe 8-foot dinette. And we were both...
You call this 8 foot?
I don't know.
I'm 5 foot. I'm 5 foot.
Yeah.
This thing is 5 foot.
Okay, either way. 5 to 8 foot.
I'm not really 5 foot, just 5 foot flat, by the way. That would be a little short.
No, she's not. So that was kind of a struggle because we had a lot of stuff going on. Like, I mean, you obviously had to drop down from a desktop to a laptop.
Yeah.
I was already using a laptop. Thankfully, the laptop that you got from work was small so that it didn't take up as much space as my big laptop does.
Yeah.
And then, you know, obviously you have your mouse, and then we were trying to do things like dual monitors.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other thing I want to mention about, you know, just dinette versions is we've been into other campers. Mm-hmm. We've seen other campers. When you really get into this lifestyle and you start joining the Facebook groups, just for funsies, you'll start looking at other people's campers. Yeah. And a lot of people will actually post, hey, this is my remote desk space. Like, they'll post about it. So I always like to look at that because currently we are in a very small camper for traveling full time. Eventually in the future, we will upgrade. We'll get to that point. And I really think we'll end up getting to the point where if Tyler ends up not working in the office or like not working remotely, it'll just have one remote spot and that'll be my office. And it will not be at a dinette. Because Tyler likes to sit here and watch TV. And I look at him and I'm like, absolutely not. I can't sit there anymore. I've sat there for 8 hours today. I've got to get away from that spot. So it doesn't bother him, but it drives me bonkers. So, even if you are looking at a smaller camper, it's optional, right? Like, you are going to have a place to work remotely if you need it. Yeah. But if you're looking at one of those fancy-dancy ones, you'll definitely have a spot, and you just make it your own. But like Tyler said, we did look at dual monitors, which was a huge thing because of what both of us were doing, especially when Tyler was running the business, and the way that my job works. It's nice to... we don't have to have it. It's nice to have it. Right. So, like he said, I did have to get rid of my desktop. I actually have it in storage because it's technically works. They gave me a nice wireless keyboard. I mean, they set up and they gave us. We have headphones. They gave us a nice setup for work. But all I brought with me on the road was my wireless mouse and my laptop. because I didn't have room for anything, and my headphones, but I
Yeah.
didn't have room for anything else. And we actually upgraded to wireless headphones.
Yeah, because the wires were just getting so tangled. Yeah. We had too many wires.
It was too much, so we did that as well. And I found, I'm sure everybody freaking knows about them, but I found I guess it's like a gaming screen. That's what it looked like on Amazon when I purchased it. And you can plug it in and you can add an extra screen for gaming. But I was able to add it as a second screen for work.
Right.
And it was just connected by one wire. And I was able to make one screen 1, one screen 2. Worked for me. And then I'll let Tyler tell you, he had a different type of dual monitor.
Yeah, so when she got hers, I was like, ooh, that would be really nice. So I started doing some research, and I found one that actually clips onto the back of your laptop. It's meant for laptops.
And it was one that folded out both ways, right?
So it actually had 2 screens, so it was
a 3.
You could have had 3 screens total. And I really liked it. I had to stop using it because the laptop I was using it on was a work laptop, and I left that job.
Yeah.
And it didn't fit my other laptop. Yeah. So I couldn't use it, and then for some reason it wasn't compatible with Gracie's laptop, even though it was the right size. It would never work.
Yeah.
So we kind of stopped using those because
I didn't like it anyways.
Yeah.
Because so right now we both use our singular laptops, and he's working not remotely anymore, so it's kind of a moot point. But when we both have our laptops out, they take up the entire table. So at this point, neither one of us can have a dual, because when we both tried to have one, we had no space.
No.
So
it was hard to just move your mouse.
Yeah, that's also a tidbit. Yeah. I could do it now. I could probably do it now.
You could.
But I really should do it now. Especially with work, we're going to a new system and everything. So it'd be nice to have it. But it's definitely something to really look at if you're looking at purchasing an RV. Think about that if you're going to work remotely. Yeah. It's definitely something to put priority above other types of spaces that you could have.
100%.
So. All right. So we also want to touch base about really the nitty gritty. We've talked about working remotely, how we got that started, the conversations we had, how to prepare for it, the technology, the physical space. But truly and wholeheartedly, working remotely while traveling full time sucks. Yeah. It sucks. Go ahead.
And I want to say this and see what your take is on it.
Yeah.
Not working remotely in an RV that sucks.
No.
Working remotely while traveling. Big distinction.
Yes, that is correct. Because when you travel, you want to feel like you are on vacation. You want to go do all that fun stuff. And I think that's why I loved Colorado so much. Because I felt like 3 hours of 2.5, 3 hours of my day was not being utilized because I was going to be sleeping in until 9 anyways, till it was time to work. Right. So I was actually loving that, because I was like, oh, we get off at 3. I can go and we can go do stuff. We can go to festivals. We can go to all these things together still because I get off. So
even when you were getting off at 4 o'clock, it still made it better.
It made a difference. So that's something to think about as well. I think it's something to mentally prepare yourself for if you're gonna remote and travel, because a lot of people work remotely and they don't travel. There's currently what we're doing right now. And that is what it is. Granted, Gracie's trying to work on her tan this summer, which I'm kind of getting a little there.
She's going to the pool a lot.
But it kind of sucks to see it's sunny outside, and I know that there's a pool right there where I can go tan and go chill out in the lazy river, and I can't utilize it because I'm at work, and that makes me sad.
Try working on the beach where you literally
you don't even like the beach.
Yeah, it's still beautiful. Yeah, I'm telling you.
So that is something to definitely just put a little tidbit in there. Just really keep that in mind, because you're gonna have to have the discipline to know that you're gonna have to miss stuff.
Yeah.
And it worked for us though, because
we kind of tried to plan everything. I mean,
we did. We planned really well.
Yeah.
And my job has really great PTO, so when we traveled,
and I was my own boss.
Yeah. When we traveled, we kind of like looked into things like, hey, maybe you should take off for this, and like, so like I kind of like fluctuated my PTO days around so that we could go and do more things together. So that was nice. The other thing we wanted to talk about was going back to school and our personal Wi-Fi struggles. So first we're going to touch on going back to school.
Well, going back to school is probably going to be a whole episode in itself.
Right. It is something to think about. I know we're we're outliers, I feel like, in that aspect too. Yeah. But going back to school and Wi-Fi is super important because...
if you're going to go online, obviously.
Well, usually if you're working remotely and you're traveling full-time, you're going to go to online school.
Yeah. I mean, true.
So,
true.
Usually. But
true.
I about had a meltdown the other day because I was doing... Remember, you were... So, let me tell you this. I'm going to just branch off for a second. So, sometimes when you go to school remotely, you have to have a lockdown browser, which means you have to sign into this browser. You can't log out of it until you're done with your test because you can't cheat. Like, you can't go look things up. It records you. Like, it's like kind of like a proctored exam. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times they make you scan around your area just to make sure you don't have a phone laying around or you don't have somebody near you ready to tell you answers or things of that nature. So Tyler was laying down in our extended couch that we have, and he was like, can I just hide under the blankets? So I was like, yeah, it's fine. So like he hid under the blankets with the dogs, and then I like did my video, and then I like snapped like below so he knew he could breathe again and like uncover himself. Well, during that whole shindig, we still had the AT&T Wi-Fi, and we were at the campground for Waccamaw, and I had almost a meltdown because it was due. My test was due that day.
It wasn't working.
The Wi-Fi would not click and work for me to do anything, and I was about to have an explosive attack.
Yeah.
And it finally, I don't know what happened.
You switched to my laptop, didn't you?
Oh my god, I did, and it worked on your laptop.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yep, sure did. I finally got it done, but like even during the exam, like I was having like heart palpitations because I was like, if the Wi-Fi drops while I'm in my test, I am screwed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's another thing to think about, but we'll talk about going back to school in a different episode. You're right. Sorry, I just wanted to tell that story. So, I'll let Tyler start off with just a couple. We're not going to talk your ear off about some of our personal Wi-Fi struggles, but just a couple to touch on maybe so that you can kind of resonate.
Yeah. So, whenever I was working remotely in the RV, and I'm not anymore, as many of you may know from my time at Madison Vines running that, and then I moved into a new position with a resort on the beach in Myrtle Beach. But some of my clients, like, I had a lot harder time connecting to, and I don't know this to be fact, but it was mainly clients who were in Pacific time while I was in Central or Eastern time. So I don't know if it had something to do with the distance and the Wi-Fi and this was while we weren't using Starlink.
Yeah.
So we were using AT&T and our hotspot. And all
I would say all these struggles are when we weren't using Starlink.
Yeah, 100%. So that was kind of an issue, trying to figure out, and I think Gracie and I had to also work out a system because both of us had meetings and stuff.
Yep.
And you had phone calls that if I had a meeting, you had to like schedule out to where you couldn't take phone calls that day at that time. And so, it was definitely a hassle. Like we said earlier, there were definitely things that we had to work out. But there were fun moments where people pranked people.
Oh, and I do.
You gotta tell that story because that goes
so
hand
funny.
in hand with it because the way you told it the other day
hilarious.
About your previous job. Where you did it.
Well, I'll tell you, like Tyler said, like I'm actively taking phone calls throughout the day, and that was probably my biggest work struggle and I have not had one issue, by the way, on Starlink, not one issue, but on AT&T, on campground Wi-Fi, even my phone hotspot Wi-Fi, I would have issues with students calling in or me calling students and trying to get all the information that we needed to get, and they couldn't hear me or I couldn't hear them, and it would get so frustrating because there was nothing I could do about it. So by all means, take it from us, purchase good Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
don't put yourself in a position to not be able to do your job. But the little prank that Tyler wanted so graciously mentioned, I just talked about it the other day.
I know, that's why I was thinking about it.
So I used to work, because I currently work in admissions, and I used to work in Wilmington, North Carolina in an admissions team. And one of I actually just talked to her the other day. We both actually work for the same company now, but just for different teams. So
Gracie stole her.
I did. I told her she's still there, which means she likes it, which is lovely. But we used to work in cubicles, and we were right next to each other, and it was just us. We were the only two admission reps. So she left to go do something, and I stuck because we had wireless mouses, so I stuck my USB into her computer, and I left hers plugged in. So while we were working, I was just messing with her, and I would move my mouse while she was moving hers. So then you hear like her banging her mouse against the table, trying to figure out what was wrong with it. What was funny about this one was our boss came in. And he was so cool. Our boss came in and was asking her questions while she was trying to show him something, and I did it again.
That's so messed up.
She was like, see, this is what I'm talking about. And so he was sitting there, and he was like trying to figure it out. And at this point, I was red in the face. Like, I was laughing so hard, like silently trying not to pee my pants, that I eventually like couldn't hold it anymore, and I just started laughing so loud about it. It was, and then he like poked his head around the cubicle, and I was like, hey, and like I showed him what I was doing, and he just started to laugh so loud. It was just so funny. So, a while back, Tyler went to go use the bathroom or something. He stepped away from his laptop, and I ended up putting my USB into his laptop and did the same thing to him. Y'all. And I was right in front of him. I held it for a minute.
Yeah.
I'm just and that is not my strong suit.
Oh, I mean, I was ready to throw that thing across the RV.
Because sometimes his mouse, and I'll clean it for him, and he doesn't even know. But sometimes, like when you get gunk on the bottom of your mouse, or like on the inside of your little, where you scroll up and down, it starts to like lag a little bit. And his was lagging real bad recently.
Well, I got this new one. Remember when we were in Virginia? I got this
Oh,
new
that's
one.
right. I got it. It's because it's purple. That's right. His old one was lagging, and so I just thought it would be hilarious. So then I started moving my mouse around, and then he did the same thing. He beat it on the table a little bit, and then when he gets mad, he hits his laptop. That's probably why I quit working so good. He hits his laptop.
I mean, it works. The mouse works.
So, and then you should see when he gets upset because something's not working, and he's typing. Like, he presses his key so hard, and I just look up, and I'm like, what are you doing? I do the same thing, though. I get mad at my stuff, too. But it was just hilarious, and I was in front of his face, and if you know me, I am not good at holding it down. Like, I'm not good at poker. I'm not good at any of that stuff. I laugh too hard. That's why I can't do stuff like that.
I gotta give it to her. That was probably one of her best pranks.
Thank you.
You got me good.
Thank you. And then he looked at me, though. He looked at me a couple times, and I held it. And then he looked at me just the last time he looked at me. He, like, smirked a little bit and, like, made his eyes go smaller, and that was it. I started laughing about it.
Yeah. And, you know, I know what you're thinking. Like, how did you not notice that there was an extra USB? Because I have, like, 4 USBs.
He's got his headphones.
Yeah.
He had
the dual screen.
His mouse was plugged in. And then his charger, like, you don't notice that kind of stuff when you have all that other stuff plugged in.
Now, like, had there not been anything plugged in, I came back and there was something plugged in, obviously I would have noticed. But with as much shit as I have plugged in and you have plugged in.
And also, yours aren't on mine. I have both sides. Yours isn't on both sides.
Yeah.
And you're on the opposite side of your mouse. So, like, it's not something you actively look at. Yeah. It was so funny. I plan on doing it to somebody else at some point because it's, like, the only prank I'm good at.
Hey,
I'm going to use it over. Baby. Yeah, I'm going to use it over and over again. Oh, God. Okay, so finally, to kind of wrap this good old podcast up about working remotely and Wi-Fi and technology, we wanted just to kind of put out a couple of resources out there if you are looking at traveling full-time, if you're looking at working remotely, just campers in general. Just a couple of resources that we have found that kind of people have taken part in to try and find positions.
Right.
So first and foremost is obviously going to be Facebook groups.
Yeah.
There's thousands upon thousands. There's actually, if you really dig into it, I mean, there's like Facebook groups for everybody.
Yeah.
But there are Facebook groups for your area.
Yeah.
So definitely look into that. I know some people really like to work their time zone. If you even don't want to look at that and you want to try and get a time zone where you can work at 6 a.m. in the morning and get off at 2.
Yeah.
I mean, actively start looking for those.
Kind of plan out. You know, we've given you a lot of hints and tips on things we kind of wish we would have known and things we did know ahead of time. And, you know, if you start working remotely and you hate it, there's always, if you want to keep RVing full time, there's always, traveling jobs, like we mentioned earlier, traveling nurses or traveling construction workers. But you've also got, like, work camping jobs where you can go work at a campground. Sometimes they give you, like, a free hookup and then an hourly wage. And
I'd say those are more, depending on where you go, those can be part-time.
Yeah.
And so a lot of, if you start looking at remote jobs, you'll start realizing, unless you have a specific degree in something remotely, or you get lucky, a lot of part-time jobs are remote.
Yeah.
Call centers, things of that nature.
Right.
So just to supplement income, depending on what you need.
It's always an option.
Yep, exactly. And that way you don't have to leave the campground if that's something that you don't want to do.
Yeah, which is what I did whenever I went to Madison. And now I kind of realized that I love the hospitality industry and miss that. So working back at that resort. And so we'll see where it goes. But I think that kind of wraps up this episode. And we really appreciate you guys tuning in and being patient with us. These last couple months have been
I'm not gonna lie, they're not gonna get much better through the summer because he's gonna start his new job and I'm gonna be finishing up school. So, and honestly, now that we're back here by family, we just have a lot of like catching up to do. So if we're late, I'll send out another funny meme. Go check the one I sent out today. And if we won't, obviously, if you hear Rocky huffing, it's just because he's hot. But if you see that we are being a little late, just know that we're living our best life RVing full time, and that is why we're late.
Yeah. But as always, we love you
so much.
Who lives in RV, traveling estates, adventure with coffee, driving dink all over the place, adventure with coffee, with 3 pups or cuddling as can be, adventure with coffee, the happiest little traveling family, adventure with coffee, adventure with coffee, adventure with coffee, adventure with coffee. Until next time.